Whether it's jaw-dropping stunts, hilarious fails, heartwarming triumphs, or mind-bending skills, we've curated the most captivating moments just for you. Let the compilation begin. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for having a jacket of shame at my wedding just so that my mother-in-law won't wear a wedding dress? I, 23 female, and my husband, 25 male, got married last year in March after dating for 3 years. I've never had any issues with his family, and his mother and I used to get along quite well. We're also the first on both sides to get married. Long story short, planning this wedding was no walk in the park, and there were multiple fights between myself and the mothers, my mother and his mother, about stupid nitty-gritty stuff like decor, what table I wanted to use, round or square, even what style dress I wanted to wear. But the cherry on the cake was my mother-in-law's outfit she was planning on wearing. In the 6 months we planned our wedding, I expressed multiple times that the only color guests weren't allowed to wear was white, and even encouraged everyone to go all out with their outfits, prom looks, etc., because who doesn't love dressing up and looking their best? But clearly, this didn't include my mother-in-law. She continued to show me pictures of the outfits she was planning on wearing, all of which were completely white. I tried multiple angles with her, first trying to nudge her in a different color direction, then casually bringing up the no white rule. I even asked my husband and mother to talk to her about not wearing white, as my direct approach didn't seem to work, telling her straight up to not wear white. The moment I realized I needed to think of a serious plan fast was when one of her online orders arrived, and I just happened to be there. Finally, I got to see this outfit, and to be honest, I prepared myself for the obvious, that it would be white, and even consider letting the whole white thing slide with her just to spare myself the mental strain, but I never thought she would order a literal wedding dress. Thank goodness it was one of those expectation versus reality moments, and the dress quality was terrible and went straight to the trash. Now, to what I thought was an excellent plan. After venting to my sister and other bridesmaids about the whole situation, I suggested that there should be some kind of punishment for guests, aka mother-in-law, should they show up in white. And so the jacket of shame idea. My sister helped me shop for the perfect jacket, a yellow reflective jacket you usually see construction workers wear. But the fun didn't stop there. To make sure everyone was aware of the consequences, my sister helped me set up a decorating station at my bridal shower to decorate this jacket of shame, and it turned out to be quite the hit. My friends and family members enjoyed using glitter pens and colorful Sharpies to give the jacket its shame by writing things like, "How dare you show up in white? Are you the bride? I think not." You get the point. Afterward, I explained what the jacket would be used for, that if someone shows up at our wedding wearing white or anything that could be passed off as a wedding dress, will be forced to wear this jacket the moment they step onto the venue, and that the jacket won't be allowed to be taken off, even in official wedding family photos. Maybe I took it too far after someone asked, "But won't that ruin your photos and throw off the whole aesthetic?" And I bluntly replied with, "Not at all. I would frame the photo and hang it up in our house as a reminder/trophy." Needless to say, I never got that photo, and my mother-in-law turned up in an all-black funeral outfit to the wedding. I took it as a win, but I kept getting shade every now and then from his mother and aunt about how inappropriate the jacket was, and that I was such a shrew for forcing the jacket onto my guests. Am I the a-hole? No. You tried being nice, you tried being direct, and this was the way to deal with it, and you did it without going into typical bridezilla behavior and screaming and yelling and being emotional. You were constructive with it. By literally constructing a jacket. It was great. And you can always use Photoshop to edit it out if someone had to have worn that jacket. But it's a perfect solution, not the a-hole. It is your day. Perfect. Story 2. Teacher tells me to keep my camera on during a blood transfusion, then gets mad at me. Yesterday, I, female 16, emailed my teachers and I told them I'll be in the hospital getting an infusion for a chronic illness that I have and a blood transfusion, and I asked if they would mind if I had my camera off for the meetings. All of them said yes, except for my history teacher. She said she needs to know I'm actually in the class. I tried to explain my situation and that I was uncomfortable with the class seeing me in the infusion clinic with my central line. I usually wear sweaters to cover it at home, but it feels weird when I wear a sweater over it during an infusion and all my monitors. She basically said tough and that I need to show up for class. So the class starts and I log on to the meeting, and you can very clearly see the central line in my chest, the IV pole with the unit of blood, the monitors that go on my chest. I forget what they're called. My teacher looked visibly uncomfortable the entire time and emailed me after class saying I made her uncomfortable and what I did was completely unprofessional. I reminded her that she said I had to have my camera on the whole time. I want to clarify a few things for y'all. The reason I still went to class was because I had already missed a lot of school this year and was starting to fall behind, so I didn't want to miss more school unless it was absolutely necessary. Also, I know there weren't too many comments on it, but I wasn't wearing anything too exposing or anything. It was a low-cut shirt that I'd worn to school plenty of times, so I assumed it would be fine for Zoom. And my parents aren't on my side for this. They think all children need to respect their elders, and the adult in the situation is always right, so if I do go forward with reporting her, I'm on my own. You have the evidence. Report her. I know you're alone in this, but hopefully you have some friends that can support you. You said you emailed, therefore you have a paper trail. This person said you need to show up for class. You explain the situation, then they get mad when you do what they say. If you report them, you've got the evidence. Anyone can see that. I would say find some friends to support you and report them anyway. What do you think? Story 1. How do I tell my daughter that her older sister is actually her biological mother? So me, 53 male, and my wife Rose, 53 female, had our older daughter Sarah, 31 female, when we were 22. We were young and broke, but managed, and now we raised Sarah the best we could. She got pregnant at 15. It was a very depressing time for her. She had to go to therapy and never told us anything about the father, which always upset her, so we never pushed the issue. She originally wanted to terminate, but kept canceling, and eventually told us she wanted to give her up for adoption. But 5 months into the pregnancy, when she was discussing with a social worker for a couple to adopt, the couple dropped out of the adoption. After trying to find more couples, Sarah asked us if we wanted to adopt. Me and Rose were both 38 at this point, and we had both been discussing having another child, so we ended up adopting our daughter Ellie when Sarah had her at 16. 2 years after Ellie, my wife and I had our son Logan, 13, biologically. Growing up, we always planned on telling Ellie she was adopted, but we knew that by telling her that, we had to tell her Sarah was her bio mother. Sarah never became close with Ellie, not even as sisters. She moved out after the birth and lived with Rose's sister. She has always shown sisterly love to Logan, but never touched Ellie. There have always been conflicting feelings with Sarah. I've seen posts on Sarah's Instagram where she posted a picture of what was supposed to be the 5 of us, but Ellie was cut out. I confronted her about this, and she says it's too painful. However, a couple of years ago, she showed up drunk, begging us to let us see her daughter. We talked to her and let her stay, but did not let her near Ellie since she was drunk. We found out from her husband she had suffered several miscarriages and was told to consider a surrogate. She ended up doing that 4 years ago and has since had twins, Jack and Jill, 3, male and female, who are biologically hers. Ellie has loved being an aunt to the twins, and Sarah has encouraged this with Ellie, and has been inviting Ellie over to the house for family time with Logan, who loves being an uncle. We have asked Sarah that in light of the twins and Ellie being close to them, wouldn't it be time to tell Ellie the truth? But Sarah keeps claiming she's not ready. Recently, Ellie came to us and has told us she's pregnant. This time, it's a completely different situation. We have met the father. He is a childhood friend of hers, and they decided they wanted to lose their virginities to each other. We had the talk with Ellie long ago, as we did with Sarah. We approached the situation calmly and have since met with the father and his parents. Ellie is insistent on keeping the baby. She's 3 months along. We have not told Sarah yet. We do not know how to approach the situation. We don't know how she'll be able to take it. Me and my wife are considering telling Ellie the truth, but we need Sarah to be there. It sounds like it needs to happen because there's going to have to be legal forms filled out and names are going to have to be given for this. And I think pretty soon. But you're right. You need to let Sarah know that she has to be there. She has put it off long enough, and you should probably let her be there, but you two need to do the talking, I think. Story 2. Keep picking me for a random locker search? Meet my underwear. Many years ago, I worked for an outdoor activity center / playland in the retail department. Throughout the park, there were many different shops that we manned, and I absolutely loved working there, despite it being hard work for little pay. One day, I had a run-in with a manager who seriously berated me in front of the entire team, along with others from different departments. I was advised by a manager from a different team to make a formal complaint, which I did. Others came out with similar complaints and said the manager was advised to find employment elsewhere, but not sacked. Now, unbeknownst to me, I triggered the chain of events that would lead to my leaving the company. Now, before the main story, there's some background info that's relevant to my malicious compliance. There were a few rules in place that were designed to prevent theft, including no more than 10 pounds to be allowed on the shop floor, which was to be checked before your shift. Anything over this must be declared to management and left in your locker, and all staff had to agree to random locker / pocket searches. In the 2 years I worked there, I had never been picked for a random search. There were around several hundred employees, so the odds were incredibly slim. As soon as our disgraced manager left, I suddenly found myself picked at random for a search. This involved turning out my pockets, removing my shoes and socks, and then being escorted to the locker room to empty the contents out. Nothing was found, so I was sent back to the shop floor. The following week, I was again picked at random for a search, which again turned up nothing. Rumors were soon doing the rounds that I had upset the department's remaining management team after instigating the action against my former manager, and they were going to force me out using any means necessary. I realized that I needed to act, so started job hunting, and then began my malicious compliance. I started taking a backpack to work filled with 20 pounds in pennies. Every morning, I declared the amount in my locker as required, and sure enough, after a couple of days, I was once again selected for my weekly random search. I got paid to watch a security guard and supervisor count 2,000 pennies. As expected, I passed said search, and off I went. This happened a second time, with now 30 pounds in pennies, and I decided to up my game. At the start of the following week, I patiently awaited my random search with glee, knowing what awaited them. The day soon arrived, and off I was marched to the lockers, ready for their treat. I lift out my backpack and pass it to the security guard and supervisor, who dived straight in without any gloves. Oh, how they watched as they discovered what was in there. I had several pairs of my period-soaked panties waiting in there especially for them. They were gingerly laid on the floor beside my bag as they counted my bag of pennies. The smell from the pants was unreal. They'd been festering in there for days in anticipation. Once again, the search revealed nothing, and off to work I went. After that, I was not picked for another search again. I left after a couple more weeks to a new job, and keeping in touch with some people, I discovered that a new rule was introduced that tried dictating what you could and couldn't take to work with you. This soon led to a mass walkout of staff, and after a year, the place was shut down due to unrelated matters. Yeah, right, unrelated matters. I don't think that's the case. And these rules were very invasive to begin with. They shouldn't have been allowed to be that invasive. I guess this was a place where you had to have work, and you had to work for this place, and you had to agree to their rules, but yeah, this was malicious compliance. If she had stuck out there quite a while later, she probably could have had a case against the current management for harassment and vindication or something like that. But yeah, I mean, and I don't know, as bad as they were, I don't know if they should have been subjected to biological warfare. I think the 30 pounds in pennies was enough, but yeah, at least it stopped. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for telling my family that if they wanted his ex removed from my wedding pictures, they had to pay? My brother goes through women like I go through socks. I gave him a +1 for my wedding 2 years ago. He brought his girlfriend of that time. When we were doing the family pictures, he wanted his girlfriend in the pictures. I said we could do some with her and some without. He got mad that I allowed my sister to have her fiancé in all the pictures, and my other brother was allowed to have his boyfriend of 5 years, but that I had the audacity to exclude his girlfriend of the week. My parents said that they didn't want any fighting and to just include her. They were paying for everything, so I said fine. She isn't in all our pictures, just the ones with our family and both families. Now, my brother is engaged, and we had the family over last weekend. His fiancée saw our wedding picture on the wall and got into a fight with my brother. He never told her that he had been in a serious relationship with her nemesis. He tried explaining that they only dated a very short while. She called BS because she was included in the family picture. She asked to see our wedding album. Sure enough, the girl was in multiple pictures with the family and the in-laws. My brother finally calmed her down, but has asked me to take down the picture or have his ex removed. I said that it was expensive, so he would have to pay for it. He tried complaining to our parents. They said that I was being childish. I reminded them that they were the ones who insisted I give in to him. I said that they were welcome to pay for the editing. They said I was a jerk and that they already paid for the pictures once. Yeah, and now you're paying a different way by having a person who's going to be a part of your family be resentful of someone else in wedding photos. I mean, how often are they going to be at this person's house? Are they going to see him are they going to see them all the time? And is she going to be constantly reminded of this? Are these people still enemies? And I just don't believe that Photoshop editing is going to be that expensive. It might be. It depends on how, I mean, this is probably before AI, right? You know, like AI's generative fill is now taking over everything. So maybe it's not going to be that expensive now. Who knows? Maybe the girl is willing to pay to have this person taken out. Maybe she might enjoy that. Story 2. My high school tried to punish me for filing a First Amendment lawsuit and use it to get into my dream college. In 2008, I was involved in a federal lawsuit where my rural Texas high school tried to suspend me for wearing a shirt supporting the Democratic hopeful John Edwards. Hindsight is 2020. They said it was a violation of the dress code, which was only ever selectively enforced. My parents had my back and agreed that it was, to quote my very white dad, redneck cracker nonsense. I'll never forget during the initial meeting when my principal called in a school board member. He said that if I got suspended, I would probably get kicked off the football team and that could hurt me getting into college. It didn't matter. I was a miserable player and a smart kid, so it wasn't going to be what got me into college. But the slimy fake concern as he tried to leverage my future against my speech is something I'll never forget. Anyways, as the case goes on, the squeeze gets tighter. First, they have the football coaches try to get me to drop it, having the football coaches talk about how my selfishness means that they can't wear Fellowship of Christian Athlete shirts anymore, trying to embarrass me in front of the team. And I'm a fat kid who openly plays Magic the Gathering in high school. Hit me with your best shot. I have no shame. Next, they host a meeting with all of the teachers, telling them I'm a problem and that they need to keep an eye on me in case I slip up. I found this out years after the fact when I bumped into my English teacher at a friend's wedding. Finally, they just start pulling in students from my classes to get them to say bad stuff about me. I was a class clown, so this turned into every single dirty joke, rude comment, or loud fart I made getting reported to school administration, which then leads to this awful little toady vice principal calling me and my parents in and reading them back in front of my mother. That one stung. My parents still knew it was hogwash, but who wants their locker room jokes aired in front of their mom? They used this as a pretext to expel me for 6 weeks, citing inappropriate, spicy conduct. They shoved me into the disciplinary alternative education program, and I am fracking steaming. The program is basically where they warehouse kids with emotional problems they can't handle. You just sit in a room in a refurbished insane asylum and can't do anything but read or use the computer for monitored educational purposes. You also get booted from extracurriculars while you're there. I know at this point they want me to make a scene so they can punish me further, so I do the exact opposite. I channel all my rage and new free time into my schoolwork, doing homework I would usually ignore because I knew I could ace the test. Now I'm doing both, and my GPA is climbing. I start looking into scholarships and find a bunch that are really interested in political activism, and guess who now knows a little more about that? I apply and rip my school a new butthole in every one. Then I work with my dad and we find an attorney who will take our case pro bono, which means while the school bleeds, feels it doesn't cost us anything to keep it in court. I spent those weeks like a monk, motivated entirely by spite, doing everything I could to make their hogwash work for me. I got out, got back on all my teams, and ended up applying for a prestigious honors program at my dream school. Not only did I get in, but I got way more financial support than I thought I would. Eventually, we lost the case, but the school had to abolish the dress code anyway because they couldn't afford to get sued over it again. I don't like the idea that a school lost money, but man, they made the choice. They could have backed down whenever. Now, I've graduated law school, am taking the bar in 2 weeks, and already have a job investigating government corruption. I'm getting paid to be a pain in the butt and I'm getting paid to be a pain in the butt of petty authority, and it's pretty sweet. I think Spite Monk should be a new class they should add to any role-playing game of some sort, and I still like that phrase. What was it up here? What does it say up here? That goes further up there. Redneck cracker nonsense. Very funny stuff. And yeah, it just pushed them. Every time he tried to punish him or put them down, it just pushed him further into his passion. And they created their own monster, and now they got to live with it.
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 1. Am I the a-hole for how I responded to my mom when she said I wasn't invited to her wedding? I, 15 female, am my mother's, 35 female, only daughter she has from her previous marriage. She has 3 children, the rest being boys, 18 and 16, and this is important to know. Last week, my mom was talking with one of her friends about the color she wanted for the bridesmaid dresses to be. My mom had been planning this wedding with her new boyfriend for the past 2 months or so. They have been engaged for about 1 year. The wedding is in December, and on the day before my wedding, me and my mom have been planning a party for me around the same time she was for the wedding. She insisted that it was all right and that her boyfriend and her would go on their honeymoon the next day. While she was talking, I had asked her when we were going to look for my dress since she had asked me to be the flower girl. I could see the disappointed look on her face when I asked her, which confused me. She responded only a few minutes later and said, "We'll talk about it later." A few hours later, my mom came to me. I thought she was going to talk about the dress situation, but instead she sat me down and explained how her new boyfriend thought it'd be a better fit for their 3 daughters to lead the wedding. Whatever, I was cool with that, but it's important to note that my mom had always wanted all girls. I was a girl, but I had looked too much like my father, which caused a strain in our relationship. My dad explained to me how my mother had postpartum when she had me and just couldn't connect with me because of it. So when she gave birth to my 3 younger step-siblings, who all look like her, triplet 6-year-olds, she was obviously overjoyed. It hurt to see, but I was happy for her. My brothers had a similar experience, but were significantly better because they looked more like her. I know this is an overdramatic thing to say, but sometimes I feel like because my mother didn't feel as connected with me at birth was because I was a letdown right out of the gate. After she was done, I asked her again about the dress because I still didn't have one. Again, that same disappointed look on her face came before telling me I wasn't invited to the wedding. Simply because her boyfriend thought I would upset his family because I was from my mom's previous marriage and he didn't like my dad. She also explained how my birthday isn't happening either due to him wanting to go on their honeymoon right away. It turned into a screaming match with me yelling, "I'm sorry I don't look like you enough for you to love me. I'm sorry you were too conceited for you to get over the fact I look like my dad." I was kicked out by her boyfriend within the same hour because she had cried to him about what I said. All my brothers know what happened and have now refused to go to the wedding, which upset her even more, though I don't care about how she feels right now. My brothers had an actual relationship with her, and I probably just messed it up by letting my anger get the best of me. Am I the a-hole? Not really. She's pushing you out. Not only is she pushing you out of the wedding, she is completely disregarding your birthday. I mean, we're talking total Disney stepmother stuff, except this is your actual mother. She still has some resentment over this, and thank you for the boys for supporting this woman. Maybe letting the emotions get the best of you and screaming at her just that one sentence may have been a little over the top, but you're frustrated. You're getting ignored and just disregarded. And she's just pushing her wedding over your birthday and all this? No, I don't think you're the a-hole at all. What do you think? Story 2. Boss tells me I'm not a manager, so I stopped doing her job. For background, I work in mental health and substance use services. I have worked at my job for a long time now. My boss is never available for help and hardly on site. Recently, she's got a new manager who is not impressed with her work ethic. But then a lockdown happened and he had to shield. She has gone straight back to her old ways. Boss will often ask me to do her work for her to save her coming in, which I've never minded doing up until recently. I had a meeting with my boss after an incident at work where someone tried to assault me. I told my boss I didn't feel supported by her after it had happened, as she wasn't present and didn't manage it well afterwards. In the middle of the meeting, the boss says, "Perhaps you want to consider some easier work in a different department?" Me. What? Why? Boss. Well, you do take on a lot of extra work that you don't need. A lot of this work is manager's job. Maybe you need to learn to say no to taking on all this work. I asked if there was something wrong with my standard of work, if she had concerns, etc., and she said no. 3 months down the line, 4 of the team leave and they get new people in. Boss. Oh, can you induct new starters on their first day? Me. Sorry, boss, that's a manager's job. Boss. Can you complete the fire risk assessment? Me. Sorry, boss, that's a manager's job. After a while, she stops asking me things. Then one day she's working from home. I'm pretty sure she's been telling her manager she's on site throughout the lockdown, but mostly it isn't huge incident that kicks off with residents. That was worded weirdly. Emergency services are called, etc. Sounds like there was a huge incident that happened and people were called in. I called my boss and explained to her what happened. Boss. Oh, can you please follow up with commissioning body, staff, and residents involved and write the report and send it all directly to me, please? Me. Sorry. Boss, you will need to come in and manage this. I'm not a manager. That's not my job. Boss. Just this once, please. I refused to manage the incident. It turned out she was visiting a friend who lived at the coast whilst she was meant to be on site. Someone accidentally let slip to her manager when he called in the incident, and there was no one to manage. He asked me to deal with the incident. I explained I couldn't and that my boss had reported me as taking on too much work, and a full investigation has been launched into her conduct and ability to do her job. Manager now talks to me directly and supervises me. He is helping me apply for a promotion. Boss is on leave, pending investigation. Nothing wrong with working remotely, but if you have to come into work, you better be ready to come into work. And this person tried to take advantage of it and tried to take advantage of someone who was willing up until that point to do the work for them. Just hustle mentality, trying to get as much as you can for little work.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 1. My mom told me for 20 years my dad had passed away. Later, I found he was alive, and I have 50 plus siblings? Oh, I'm looking forward to reading this one. Growing up, I always remember my mom being a single mom. I don't remember the exact moment she told me my dad was unalive because I was so young. I've kind of always known. My mom told me that my dad passed away in a car accident 2 months before I was born. She said he was hit by a drunk semi-driver and was unalived instantly on impact. Obviously, no one questions their own mother, especially at a young age. You believe their every word. This is what I always told people growing up if they asked about my dad. I would say I don't have a dad because he was unalived, and my mom took this lie so far to the point that even on financial aid papers, she claimed to be a widower. I never caught on to the lies, but when I asked questions, she said things that just made sense to me, like, "Mom, why don't you have photos of Dad?" She told me they all burned in a house fire started by the dryer right after I was born. This made sense because we had moved to a new house when I was very young. I tried to research my dad and his perishing, but nothing ever came of it. I assumed back in the day they didn't have computers or the internet, so nothing was online. I later found out his name was Donald, according to my birth certificate. I had to force my mom to give it to me so I could get my license. A lot of the times I tried to ask more questions when I got older, but my mom became visibly angry when I did this. Eventually, I just stopped because I didn't want to get yelled at anymore. I tried asking family members questions, and literally no one, even my grandma, knew. My mom and grandma are super close, so this was odd to me. Fast forward to when I was 19, I started to see a therapist after being a victim of attempted kidnapping and diagnosed with PTSD. My therapist told me to take a DNA test. I asked my mom to pay for it because I was a poor college student. She right away got so mad and yelled at me. She claimed that the government was going to clone my DNA and sell it, so I never ended up taking it. Fast forward to when I was 20 years old, around Thanksgiving time. My 3 friends and I had a fun day of baking cookies and talking all day long, until I brought up the stories of my past and my unalive father. I had a conspiracy I made up about my life totally as a joke. I told my therapist and now my friends. What if my mom had a one-night stand with a rock star and got pregnant with me? She never was able to find him again, so she couldn't tell him. My theory wasn't too far off. My family is extremely Catholic, so to stay in the good graces of my grandparents, she made up a lie that she met someone, got married, got pregnant, and then her husband just happened to perish right before I was born. But this is what really went down. I took a DNA test and then confronted my mom about it. She finally confessed that she always wanted to have a child, but never wanted to get married. She found a clinic that would do sperm donor babies. She had 2 miscarriages before me, all with different donors. The 3rd time, she got pregnant with me. The name Donald came from a donor. There was no dad that perished in a car accident. All lies. With my results from the DNA test, a girl messaged me claiming to be my half-sister. She was correct and introduced in a group chat to the other siblings. This was 2 years ago, and we only had 30 half-siblings at the time. Now we're up to 50 and expecting more around Christmas time. We're all from all over the country. As for my dad being alive, we found this out recently. After years of research and sleuthing, my sisters found our donor through leads from the DNA test. We have reached out to him, and he is grateful to know about us. We have limited contact due to his family and horrible wife. His wife wants to keep her good reputation. He never told his family about being a sperm donor in college because of his extremely Catholic family. I wish he would tell them and we could meet our cousins, aunts, and grandparents, but it's unlikely he ever will. If you made it this way, let me share my story. I don't know what that is at the end there, but I was expecting something a little more salacious than just it ended up being a donor. But I'm glad the mystery has been resolved and it's a little more innocent. And how is this woman in an extremely Catholic family? I'm not that big on the Catholic rules, so they're not okay with infidelity, but they're okay with sperm donors? Did the mother just do this by herself and just say, oh, well, can't do anything about it now, and they just went with it? Just, was everyone in on this secret? And it's kind of screwed up not to tell her about it. You just can't get away with this lie for too long before the truth is just going to come to light in a lot of ways. Story 2. Police mistakenly entered my apartment. The high-rise I live in has an east and a west tower. Yesterday afternoon, LAPD came to my door, announced who they were, and then proceeded inside. They put me up against the wall in handcuffs while they searched my apartment. This whole time, I'm confused as to what's going on. The officer restraining me said it was a fire alarm. After a couple of minutes of trying to get an explanation as to why I'm in handcuffs against the wall for a fire alarm, another officer says that there was a bomb threat called into my address. I asked them, what is the address? And they mentioned my unit number, but of course the address was the other tower across the street. They called dispatch to confirm, and just as fast as they entered, they said I was free to go and just left. It was a pretty messed up and stressful situation. What is the protocol for police errors like this? Could not give you any advice on that. People in the comments, I'm sure, would love to give you some advice. Don't know, well, this is California, so anyone from California who has expertise in this. I'm suggesting you're probably going to have to lawyer up and see about this and see what went wrong down the line. I'm sure there are plenty that would love a chance to take a crack at this against the LAPD. And as we've known by another situation that we all know about in the news, situations like this could be very, very fatal.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 1. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my fiancée to dance to a love song dedicated to her late fiancé at our wedding? Before we met, my fiancée Kayla was engaged to a man she had dated for 3 years who perished in a traffic accident. I had never dated a woman who had that kind of loss before, so I've been learning as I go. But I've tried to respect that he will always be a part of her story, and I accepted her relationship with her late fiancé's parents with open arms. They stayed very close, and by the time we started dating, they were basically like a second set of parents to her. Kayla's real parents and her late fiancé's parents are all amazing people, so I consider myself pretty lucky to have 2 sets of great in-laws. Our wedding is coming up in May, and Kayla told me that after her father-daughter dance, she would like to have a second dance with her late fiancé's father to the tune Vanilla Twilight. She asked me if I was comfortable with that, and I didn't want to be that guy and say no, so I said yes. But really, it makes me uncomfortable that she would be dancing to a love song dedicated to another man at our wedding. I was happy to make space in our lives for his memory. A photo of him is on our mantel at home. We make it a point to commemorate his birthday, the anniversary of his death, and I feel like I'm understanding and supportive when she has bad days. And I'm 100% fine with having his parents at the wedding because, like I said, we're all a family. But I also feel like our wedding is one day that is all about our relationship. Am I the a-hole if I ask her to reconsider this dance? What are the best compromises here? First off, you should have been upfront about it in the most tactful way possible and should have said like that last thing. This wedding should be about our relationship. I think part of it might be about the unalive fiance's father. If they're that close, he wants to be a part of giving her away as well. I think there needs to be a big discussion about this, and I think you need to be forthright instead of pretending to be that guy. Maybe if you have to see a therapist to discuss this out with just no judgments. And see what she says. Try and do it without that memory. I mean, if she's always going to, if the wedding is always going to include the past fiance, the relationship so far has always included him. This is probably no different. You're kind of the a-hole for not being honest to begin with. Story 2. An escort stole my dogs and the cops won't help, so I hunted her down myself. So it all started on Sunday, May 26th. I was flying back home from Texas, where I was at my girlfriend's sister's wedding. We had a layover in Vegas before our 1-hour flight back to Sacramento. I landed in Vegas and I got reception. That's when my roommates called me and told me how the door to our backyard gate was busted open and my beautiful husky wolf mix was missing. That dog is everything to me. She is 3 years old now, and I've had her since she was 2 months old. She's been with me through all my breakups, my layoffs, and my evictions. She was my only friend when all my other friends believed the rumors my ex said about me. Anyways, she's gone, and I get home to start doing the usual putting up flyers, offering a reward, and notifying every shelter, vet, and her chip company of her disappearance. I put notices on every lost and found page, and suddenly it starts to go viral on Facebook. A lot of people really wanted to help me find my dog, and I had every eye everywhere. I wake up one day to a Craigslist ad with a picture of an unknown girl hugging my dog with the ad titled, "Found Husky," sent to me by a friend of mine, so I contact the ad maker. The lady was nice and explained she didn't find my dog, but a friend of hers on Instagram found her. She posted pictures on Instagram and bragged about how the universe brought me this beautiful shrew. She sent me screenshots of her Instagram and all the pictures she posted of my dog. She then tells me, I don't know her personally, but she is a fellow escort. It turns out the girl who has my dog is an escort. So she messaged the girl to tell her that she found the owner of the dog, and she fully deletes all posts about my dog and blocks the ad maker. So I think, all right, this is a viral game on, shrew. I get all the people who have been searching, including my detective aunt, and we make a hunt. I file a police report, and they are down to bust this chick, but I have to find where she is and holding my dog for them to do anything, which is pretty useless. I get people to start contacting one another. We found her legal name, all the addresses she's tied with, including her boyfriend, mom, stepdad, possibly dad, and stepmom's info. We even found 2 warrants for her arrest. She was charged with petty theft, hit and run involving property damage, lying to a peace officer, and possession of contraband. After that, I found that info, including her being an escort, which is illegal where I'm from. We had her. I dug up all her info, including emails and phone numbers, with her escort phone number. So I call this woman to confront her, and she starts yelling at me about how I'm harassing and threatening her. This is the first time I've ever talked to the woman, and how she was going to press charges on me. She then said she brought my dog to a shelter. She also told me which shelter 2 days prior. I confirmed that wasn't true. Meanwhile, I'm gathering all the proof I have that this dog is mine, which is 3 years of timestamp photos with me and the dog and the chip information that my dog is registered with, and her being in my name with the chip company. She is told this and still refuses to give her back, saying, I'm afraid to give the dog back because the owner is threatening me, which I never did and have proof of that. So now she is on blast on Facebook, Instagram, and online forums as well. I'll provide more edits later. Oh man, come on. That's not the way to end the story. We need to know. We need a follow-up on this. You sound like you have all the cards right now. You have every reverse Uno in your hand when she thinks she's going to win the game with the one Uno card she has. We need a follow-up on this. It sounds like you've got her completely to rights. What happened next? What do you think happened next?
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.